Good afternoon. This is Universal News Media. Today is June 11th, 2018. The images we will be viewing just came in today from the Federal Aviation weather cams in Alaska and Canada. Our first video comes from the northeast-facing weather cam in Tulaksuk, Alaska. The sun has just risen, and the celestial object to the left of the sun can be seen rising out from behind the clouds and glare. There's a pink glow next to it. We'll be discussing that object in just a minute. The east-facing weather cam in Togiak, Alaska, shows another red celestial object, but on the other side of the sun, the south side. Unfortunately, the clouds move in and cover up the object so that we cannot view it for very long. There's many reasons we know this cannot be a lens flare, but one of the most basic and most obvious reasons is that a lens flare cannot be covered up by the clouds. The reason for this is that a lens flare is in the camera and not behind the clouds. But as the frames move forward, the red celestial object comes in and out of view, dependent upon the cloud cover in front of it. Here is the same red object rising just after the sun has risen, viewed from the east-facing weather cam in Tulaksuk, Alaska. We see it emerge from behind the clouds and glare. Once again, there's a pink object very close to the planet, which we'll discuss in a minute. When we zoom in on these frames and we play them again, we realize how enormous this celestial object is compared to the landscape below it. Zooming in really helps to get a grasp on the perspective of this. And on these last frames of the same object, some contrast has been added to bring out the details better. I found something very interesting today on the south-facing weather cam in Attawapiskat, Ontario in Canada. This is the same weather cam that showed the dark nebula back in March before Alaska and Canada became heavily chemtrailed daily. I haven't been able to see the dark nebula since. There are two interesting features within these frames. Look how bright everything is in this frame, and then 10 minutes later, notice how dark the sky and landscape are. The only thing that can cause sudden darkness like this in midday is an eclipse. There's something else I noticed about this same camera. Here is this same triangle that we always see on this camera. This triangle is always positioned right in front of the dark nebula, which used to be visible before the heavy daily chemtrailing. The triangle always made viewing of the nebula a little difficult, but we could still see it was there. For some reason, I never noticed something before about this triangle. It takes nearly an hour for the triangle to fully come into view, but once it does, the chemtrails and clouds are in front of the triangle, almost completely hiding it from sight in some of the frames. I always thought this triangle projection was some kind of a lens flare inside the camera, but the fact that it gets hidden behind the clouds, behind the chemtrails, tells us that the triangle projection is not being created from inside the camera. It must be created from elsewhere. If anyone has any comments to make about this, please leave your comment below, because to me this is very puzzling. Here are two frames from yesterday from the same camera in Attawapiskat, June 10th, showing the sky and landscape bright, and then suddenly, 10 minutes later, everything is dark, as if nighttime has fallen. The east-facing weather cam in St. Mary's, Alaska, shows that same celestial object, rising up from behind the clouds and glare of the morning rising sun. Even with contrast applied, it's still a little difficult to see. Here's something interesting on the west-facing camera in St. Mary's. Remember that this is in the morning, starting at 7:03 a.m., and also remember that this camera is facing west, opposite of where the sun is rising. Look, a dome shape is on the horizon, and it's flashing for 2.5 hours. I don't know what this is, except that it's one of the many signs and wonders of the end times. But if anyone here has a clue as to what this is, please leave a comment below for us. Remember the pink object in the sky that we saw in 2 previous video clips just a few minutes ago? This video from the east-facing weather cam in Shagaluk, Alaska, shows the reflection that pink object casts. It's apparently some sort of craft, and it casts a very odd reflection, which is always seen during an eclipse or a near eclipse. First, we see the black beam emitted just prior to an eclipse or a near eclipse. Next, we see the pink reflection of the craft that we've seen hundreds of times in these videos this year. Watch the reflection of the pink craft. It tells us exactly where the eclipsing planet is, because it lines itself up with the black dot in front of the sun and the eclipsing planet. If we draw a line from the odd-shaped reflection to the black dot in front of the sun, the eclipsing planet always shows up on this line. The southeast-facing weather cam in Good-news Bay caught a very detailed view of the red, crater-pocked, fast-rotating planet. After just a few frames, something enormous appears in the upper left corner of the screen. It's very faint and difficult to see, so I have it marked with some arrows here. Possibly this large object may be the celestial object that the red planet is orbiting. I'm not really sure. Whatever it is, it's moving slower than the red rolling planet. And then it becomes hidden behind the clouds. Here's a close-up view of the red planet. There are a couple of interesting things going on from the northeast-facing camera in Galena, Alaska. In the first frame, we see the morning sun rising with the odd-shaped reflection of the pink craft next to it, telling us that an eclipse or a near eclipse is occurring. As we move through the frames, we see the pink object which causes the odd-shaped reflection. Next, we see the black beam emitted in preparation for either an eclipse or a near eclipse. But from this camera, we cannot see the eclipsing planet. The faint image of a planet could be seen this morning from the east-facing weather cam in Good-news Bay. Clouds soon moved in and covered up the image from view. If this were a lens flare, it would be showing in front of the clouds. The east-facing weather cam in Eek, Alaska shows a moon moving behind and in front of the clouds. The northeast-facing weather cam in Shafornik, Alaska shows the sun rising. The black dot that we've explained in many previous videos is reflecting upon the water surface. This reflection is seen by anyone with or without a camera, proving that the black dot is an actual piece of equipment and not a camera or lighting issue. The odd-shaped reflections, which are present during eclipses and near eclipses, begin to swing across the screen. And once again, the odd-shaped reflection of the craft lines up perfectly with the eclipsing planet and the black dot. You could draw a line from the black dot to the pink reflection, and the planet would fall right on the middle of that line. Here is another of the same, viewed from the northeast-facing weather cam in Buckland, Alaska. The odd-shaped reflection is on the left side of the screen. The craft causing those reflections is marked with an arrow. And finally, we see the object that was eclipsing the sun. I added some contrast in this picture to make it show up better. The contrast is a funny shape because I avoided including the clouds that are in front of the planet. Anything white or bright causes the contrast to not work as well. The east-facing weather cam in Selawik, Alaska, shows a planet emerging from behind the clouds, then rolling across the sky. The east-facing weather cam in Roan, Alaska, shows some interesting shapes, and here is a close-up of that shape. I could understand one or two of them being lens flares, but I'm not sure where the whole string of objects comes from. If anyone has an idea, please leave a comment below. The east-facing weather cam in Quinnipiac, Alaska, shows the bright pink reflection often present during eclipse. Then, a few frames later, we see the eclipsing planet behind some clouds. Once again, we see the black dot reflecting upon the water surface. This time, it's from the northeast weather cam in Old Harbor, Alaska. In Puntia Lake, Alaska, the southeast-facing weather cam shows some odd shapes. These could be reflections or moons, I'm not sure which. Then, a few frames later, we see the black beam emitted in preparation for either an eclipse or a near eclipse. However, thick clouds moved in and obscured the rest of the frames for the next few hours. The northeast-facing camera in Non-Dalton, Alaska, shows the odd-shaped reflection again. Notice how a straight line could actually be drawn from the pink reflection to the black dot in front of the sun. And the eclipsing planet would always fall right on that line. Then we have a frame with some contrast to bring out the details. And here's a close-up. These celestial objects that we have been viewing are parts of an approaching system. Many people ask when the system will make its closest pass to our Earth. A general indication of time is provided in the following screens of text. Please don't forget to like this video and subscribe.